we shed light on what was amazing with respect to content in 2021, we might as well focus on some of the most unbearable movie experiences this year. The first question that will be posed with this video is that you focused on the best Indian films, but why are you only pointing out the worst of Hindi cinema? I personally, as a content creator, only have the bandwidth to watch every Hindi movie release that happens week in and week out. In the case of covering a lot of movies from different languages, I barely scratch the surface with so many releases happening. The intention of the video is not to showcase that only Hindi cinema made bad content, but also to reflect on the fact that I am the most well versed with Hindi cinema compared to other languages. So much so that I've covered every single good and bad Hindi film. Anyone who has seen every single movie title that has come out in other languages like Tamil, Telugu, Kannada, Malayalam, Marathi and Bengali content can surely point out some of the worst films that they have seen. But I can only curate the cringiest content from Hindi cinema, and that doesn't mean that other languages haven't had duds in 2021. I hope that clarifies any doubts in people's mind. Getting right into it, here is Tried&Refused Productions with top 5 worst Bollywood movies and performances of 2021. Number 5 goes to Hungama 2, a sequel that nobody asked for and had no correlation to the successful first installment was the title Hungama 2 that released on Disney Plus Hotstar. Not only did the movie have no connection with the first film, but was actually a remake of a very celebrated and loved Malayalam film Minnaram starring Mohanlal in the lead role, directed by Priyadarshan himself. The film was loved for its chirpy and heartfelt pitch and the playful and hilarious chemistry that was shared between Mohanlal, Jagdish Srikumar and Shobna. The idea of remaking it close to 27 years later made no sense in the viewer's mind. In 2016, Priyadarshan had given an interview stating that he only does Bollywood movies to make money. And while the 90s kid within me would hate to believe that, as I have loved all of his mid-2000s comedies, the statement definitely seems true for this venture. The storyline of a proclamation that a person is the father of a child, an insecure husband spying on his presumably cheating wife, and just the sheer confusion and yes, a lot of overacting and shouting. The film is a classic case of an older generation thinking that jokes 20 years ago would work, not realizing that the connotation seamlessly transitions to become tacky and outdated. The film is riddled with stereotypes, from Johnny Lever's Bengali tuition teacher and the idea of how Bengalis act and sound like, a throwback to the reductive nature of his roles as a Sardar in the 90s, Tiku Tulsania's character shouting incessantly "Sab changa hai" as the only capable advice a Sardar doctor could give. You have butchered classics like Chura Ke Dil Mera and a cameo by Rajpal Yadav who just shouts to the point of almost becoming short of breath mid-dialogue. This was like sitting through a painful open mic comedy set that never seemed to end or have any punchline, just making you wait and regret the time you invested. Number 4 goes to Radhe. One of the most anticipated commercial films of 2021 was this Salman Khan starrer directed by Prabhudeva. Even though I had come to a point of absolutely giving up on Prabhudeva as a director after Action Jackson, Sing is Bling and Dabangg 3, but for some reason the creators thought that they should greenlight another project with him. Reviving the name from Wanted and having a callback to the aura of Salman outside of films, Radhe promised commercial masala at its finest, but delivered a bootleg version of Allu Arjun's C.T. Mar and Salman sleepwalking through this role. An official remake of the 2017 South Korean film Outlaws, the movie is set in Mumbai and tackles the drug racket influencing the youth through a task force led by Salman. The only takeaway from this film is that Randeep Hooda had an absolute ball playing the antagonist and that Salman broke the fourth wall and wished us Eid Mubarak. You have poetic dialogues like "Abhi to 3 inch घुसाया है, अगर आगे कोई बढ़ा तो उसके ब्लैडर की जगह फेफड़ा होगा और लिवर की जगह किडनी." Or what took the cake of Salman getting drunk and dozing off with Disha only for Disha to say "खड़े खड़े सो गया, अब मेरे फ्यूचर का क्या होगा?" This movie solidified in my mind that Prabhudeva has transformed his choreography to become unnecessarily complicated, even making Disha look like a below average dancer. Salman barely being able to move in most of the songs, and the odd pairing of Salman and Disha was anyway an addition to the story that did not lend anything to the screenplay. This movie was purely an ode to the aura of Salman, where he barely tries, and it just makes me miss the version that we saw of the man in movies like Bajrangi Bhaijaan and Sultan. Number 3 goes to Bhuj, the Pride of India. One of the main reasons why this movie trumps over Radhe is because of the way it has butchered a perfectly inspiring story from modern Indian history. The Bhuj airbase was destroyed by the Pakistani Air Force, and 300 brave men and predominantly women led the charge of making sure that the runway gets reconstructed within 72 hours so that the Indian force can retaliate. The story about the brave women of Bhuj transition to become an Ajay Devgan saves the day story while the women just become background artists. Bhuj had the ability to make even 1 hour and 53 minutes come across as a slog. While Sharad Kelkar was the only redeeming quality about this film, everyone else just seemed to possess superpowers, while the Pakistanis were portrayed as dimwits who could easily be fooled. If Sher Shah was on one end of the spectrum of realism and subtlety with its politics, Bhuj lied on the other end with hyper-jingoism and unintentionally funny sequences. Dialogues like "Jab Pakistan ka parcham सूखी लाशों पर गड़ेगा, तब आसमान को छुएगा, लाशें कम हुई तो झंडा झुक जाएगा," and Ajay Devgan being in Tanaji hangover mode, constantly reminding everyone around him about Maratha pride. Lines like "जंग जीत जाएंगे तो X-ray करवा लेंगे," or every time a senior met Emmy Virk and said, "मेरे शेर के आंखों में उदासी." The film was filled with unintentionally funny dialogues. Ajay Devgan with a tabletop, Sanjay Dutt with an axe killing Pakistani troops with ease, and not to forget, Sonakshi's heroics in killing a leopard. This movie was just comical and offensive to the sacrifices by our very own during the war. End में तो नोरा फातेही का डांस भी एडिट पे नहीं पहुंच पाया. Number 2 goes to Hello Charlie. How this movie came into fruition or was the brainchild of a production house like XL Entertainment still blows my mind. This film made me have an existential crisis, making me contemplate on my purpose in life and whether my profession holds any significance in the real world. The movie, presumably catered to children, has an item song, a bikini shoot for an introduction to a character, and refers to women as Mal. So teaching them perverse ways is the way to go, I guess. Charlie, trying to pay back the loan of his deceased father, comes to Mumbai looking for work only to take up the job to transfer a gorilla to Diu in a truck, which is actually the wanted and absconding business tycoon Jackie Shroff in a suit, while there is another gorilla on the loose. Yes, I saw this film, and this was exactly my reaction after watching some sequences.
They ask you how you are, and you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
Somebody rightly pointed out, if the Great Indian Kitchen got rejected by Amazon Prime Video and this got approved, then there is something inherently wrong with this world. Number 1, of course, goes to Satyameva Jayate 2, a movie that has dialogues like "Zindagi bhar पीछे से मुतेगा क्योंकि आगे से टूटेगा," and ends this scene by hoisting the national flag on a person's genitals. This is a movie that doesn't deserve the marketing hype that it is getting. Satyameva Jayate 2 can be best described as an assault to the senses. Lines like "माँ की कोख से क्या, बाप की तोप से निकलने से डरेगा" literally did not generate any hoots or clapping in theaters. Milab Zaveri, in the quest of providing an ode to the 80s, actually does not even come close to the abandon and magic executed by Manmohan Desai. The reason why the first film worked was at least it focused on the theme of corruption in the police force and had an actor like Manoj Bajpayee who could at least convince us of the absurdity. But this sequence had nothing of this kind and wanted to solve everything from the lack of facilities in public hospitals, the role of doctors, the importance of communal harmony, the massive inequality of income in the country, and the sorry state of women. The amount of patriotism that is force-fed in this film is alarming, almost to the point of repeating the same thing again and again, and making this film create its own genre called patriotic comedy. Ripping an engine with his bare hands, breaking tables into two perfect halves, raising bikes with a man on it, and hilariously even pulling down a helicopter with their bare hands. By the way, assisted by a ghost father. Yes, a ghost. This one was just cringe material in every shape and form. 3 John Abrahams were too much, and the aimless staring into the distance by Divya Khosla Kumar was the exact expression that people will have if you purposely take the decision to watch this on Amazon Prime Video today. It's not even one of those films that is so bad that it's good, not even making it worthwhile if you're drunk. It's just bad in its entirety. And that was the video, guys. Write down in the comments below what you thought were the worst films this year. Please don't forget to follow me on Instagram, the handle's right in front of you. Follow me at JammyPants4. Also, please support us by smashing the like button and subscribing to our channel for weekly content ahead. Thank you for watching.